What is inside this box? Check this out. It's a 25-year-old digital camera. I had to buy this. The question is, does this thing still work? And how does it compare to a digital camera today? I gotta test this thing out. Tech it before you wreck it. What's up, geeks? I'm Kirk, and this is gonna be a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll stick around for this video because the truth is, I'm a nostalgic person. I loved my first ever digital camera. I mean, it changed everything when I was just 19 years old. I was easily the first among all my friends to have a digital camera. I mean, think about it. We're talking 1999. So recently I went down one of those Google rabbit holes searching for everything I could find about this camera, the Polaroid PDC-640. But this trip down memory lane was more than a 15-20 minute distraction because this time I ended up on eBay, and this time I actually bought it. 25 years later, does this thing still work? What kind of pictures does it take? How do they compare to a camera today? I had all these questions I had to answer, and here it is, the Polaroid PDC-640. So the seller on eBay said this does in fact work. It showed up in this cardboard box, wrapped in bubble wrap, no instructions, no included accessories, literally just the camera and a memory card. Okay, but we've got to talk about the memory card. Take a look at this thing, guys. This was before SD cards even existed. This is called Smart Media. It was actually a pretty popular memory card 25 years ago. This card actually has 2 megs of storage on it. Not 2 gigs, 2 megs. That's barely more than a floppy disk from back in the 90s. But it was this thing that proved to be the most complicated part of this entire experiment. So I'll get to that in just a bit. Let's get back to the camera though. This thing is all plastic. It feels a little cheap, a little creaky. You know, think about those cameras you would buy, the $10 cheap camera that you'd buy at the big box store and just throw some 35mm film into it. That's what this sort of feels like, but it didn't matter to me, because this thing was digital, and that is all that mattered when I bought it. The front of this slides open, that's how you turn it on. It's got a small LCD screen on the top to tell you how many pictures you have remaining on your memory card, the quality level based on stars, and the flash status. You can have it on, off, or on auto. On the back, you've got an actual color LCD screen for viewing those pictures, which back in 1999 was pretty freaking impressive. I mean, it's not a good screen, it's dim, it's slow, but again, this was 25 years ago. It was just a huge deal to have that on the back of the camera. I mean, you gotta remember, most of us were still rocking these giant CRT computer monitors on our computer desk, and if you had a cell phone, it was a black and white screen. There's even a slider on the back. It's a hardware slider to choose between macro, portrait, or wide pictures. It's literally shifting a lens on the inside. There is no automatic focus. You just have 3 levels of focus. Pretty high tech, don't you think? Finally, I want to talk about the picture quality. It's called the PDC-640, not because it's 640 megapixels or even 64 megapixels. This thing was 640 pixels wide by 480 pixels tall. For comparison's sake, that comes out to about 0.3 megapixels. If I compare that to my current Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, that's a brand new camera, I just bought it in 2024. The difference is pretty substantial when we put those side by side. Almost laughable now. But this was 1999, so who cares when you compare it to today's standards? This was digital. For the first time ever, I could take pictures all day long with just batteries and memory cards. I would argue it was almost magical back then. Okay, so how do I make this thing work? Well, first, we gotta pop in 4 AA's to see if it powers up. And the weird thing here is if you look at this, the batteries almost seem loose. I don't understand that. Were AA's fatter back in the 90s? I mean, a lot of us were fatter back in the 90s, but I didn't know the batteries were. Nonetheless, I flipped the slider on the front open and it powered up. Looks like we're in business. So the first thing I had to do was snap a couple of pictures just to test this thing out. Now I needed to get those pictures over to the PC, and this is where we get to that memory card problem. So here's what's interesting. I needed a card reader to read the Smart Media cards, and these cards were discontinued decades ago, so it wasn't exactly easy to find. What I did, I found one, I plugged it in via USB, I popped in the memory card, and it recognized it for a second on my computer, and then no longer recognized it. I tried it on multiple computers and I just could not get this thing to work. So I did what any good geek would do. I went out and found another one and bought another one. And this time it was even worse. When I put the memory card in, the light turned on, but the computer recognized nothing. And again, I tried it on multiple different computers with no luck. I mean, I know this card works. The camera recognizes it in the camera and saves pictures, so the card itself is definitely functioning. So finally, I gave up on that and I tried the video output on the side of this camera. It's actually the size of a headphone jack and it outputs to a cable that splits it to analog video. Now, analog video is roughly 640 by 480, so we are gonna lose some quality here, but we shouldn't lose too much quality. It's gonna be relatively the same as if we were downloading those digital pictures. So I know what you're thinking. You wanna see some of these pictures? Let's take a look. These are the pictures from the camera, and what I thought would be really cool, if I took some of the pictures with my brand new 2024 Sony camera and compared them to this 1999 Polaroid digital camera. I took some pictures close up, I took some pictures far away, I used that manual focus adjustment on the back to try to make them better. All right, so let's look at some of these pictures side by side. I've got the Polaroid PDC-640 on the left, and I've got my new modern day Sony ZV-E10 Mark II on the right. You can clearly tell the difference between the quality of these two photos. We're talking 1999 versus 2024. And if we start to zoom in, you can really see the difference here. I mean, when we're talking 0.3 megapixels versus something that's so much higher, it's just almost impossible to compare. So honestly, at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but the pictures out of this Polaroid PDC-640 are total garbage. But you know what? It didn't matter. I mean, this was basically magic back in 1999. You've got to think about this. Before I got this, the only way to get photos was to take them onto film, and you usually had about 24 photos per roll before you had to take that film out, take it to the photomat, get it developed. That would take about 5 or 6 days or sometimes a week, and then they hand you back a stack of photos. Now, I could get memory cards and take as many pictures as I wanted to over and over and over again. It was amazing. So even if the quality wasn't up to par with what we expect now, that was 25 years ago. And I'm a sucker for nostalgia, so I'm really glad I bought this. And to be honest with you, it's got me thinking, what can I buy next? What other cool, geeky tech gadgets did I love back then that I want to try again today in 2024? So I'm going back to eBay and I'm going to start shopping. And it begs the question, what gadgets would you go back and buy again? Was it your first digital camera or maybe your first smartphone? I want to see your comments. Comment below and maybe I can get some ideas from your comments as to what I can test out here on the channel. I can't wait to read your comments on this one. And if you want to be a part of my next trip down memory lane, I really hope you'll subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Tech it before you wreck it. I'm Kirk.